Welcome to session 3. And we have 4 presentations here, commencing with Hamed.
I am Hamed. I am from Iran and a PhD student in childhood studies in Italy. I come from a background in storytelling and photography, which is something I did or tried to teach from years when I was in Iran. And I am here to talk about Ms. Cara Rinaldi and especially documentation and the way she developed it into a strategy for mutual learning process. In the link I shared on the note page, you can download and watch the video I produced. The video is 12 minutes long. Now I will try to outline only the main points of my discussion in a few minutes to keep to the time. Okay. Ours is an era of narrative warfare. Dominant narrative have become acidic lake that dissolve memories, lives, and experiences within themselves and inject what they previously wanted. More often than not, the linguistic written resources of thought are accessible to everyone. Rhetoric often replies reality, and words work more sociable than the people behind them. The reliable literature, therefore, cannot be necessary and sufficient condition for evaluation the nature of practical action in the field. It is against this background that I want to discuss Cara Rinaldi and the legacy she left behind. My presentation has been formed through the dialogic space with her, talks, videos, or written text. Carla Rinaldi, the honorary president of Reggio Children Foundation, has dedicated her life to vivify the Reggio Emilia approach and to underpin its participatory and dialogic aspect. It is her understanding of Reggio Emilia approach that is my focus here. The emphasis she has placed on the topic of pedagogy of listening, childhood as a quality of thinking, dance between convergent and divergent thinking, connection between documentation and assessment are equivalents for autoethnography in education. I undertake dissecting documentation, reflection in her words and works, ways it makes children meaning-making process visible. In other words, breathing spaces to revive scaffolding and empowerment inside educational paradigm. Consecutive reasoning, step 1. Connecting life experiences to broader socio-cultural structures. Carla was linking Reggio Emilia tradition to broader cultural or societal themes and sees the child as a competent, capable part of the society. She believed that childhood is not an age, it's a quality of thinking. For her, the uncertainty, improvisation, interpretive, and reciprocal nature of education was not a linear and definitive procedure, but an open process or a relational place. Vygotsky believed that learning first occurs at the social level, interpersonal, and then moves to the individual level, intrapersonal. Dewey believed that self-actualization emerged from interaction, social participation, and solving real-life problems, and referred to learning by doing. What has found practical coherence in Carla is the connection of these two bodies of thought and its simultaneous connection to the role of narrative in the educational process, which she had received through close collaboration with Brunner. Her perspective is an aesthetic expression of the idea of Vygotsky, Dewey, and Brunner as an intersubjective dialogic conversation. What she was trying to give substance to through the participatory documentation of the classroom education process was to provide the teacher and the student with the support, scaffolding, and hope they needed to continue on their path. Consecutive reasoning, step 2. Question the traditional criteria of dispassionate inquiry. For Carla, the act of researcher teacher is mutual equivalence. Both are interpretive agent in describing their engaged encounter with their work. she returned to the individual capability of each person. The teacher was both the object and subject of his or her own action, and the child was the mirror of these exchange. And it was from this past that the active act of listening emerged. Pedagogy of listening was a credo for Carla. She emphasized documentation as a form of visible listening. Consecutive reasoning, step 3, evocative language, narrative. Those who remember Carla a little further than her formal text have heard more explicit aesthetic narrative. For her, visualizing and synthesizing information was a compassionate, thoughtful endeavor, akin to an expression of amour. As she said, documentation is synthesis is an act of love. She tried to give form to the Reggio Emilia tradition. Her reference to Luis Malaguzzi comes from this past. As she quote, "We need a teacher who is sometimes the director, sometimes the set designer, sometimes the curtain and the background, and sometimes the prompter." Consecutive reasoning, step 4. Acknowledgement of subjectivity as a quality. For me, her writing experiences are a form of meta-ethnographic reflection on practice, and during conversation and interviews, her approach and intellectual effort are linked to the expressive language of art and are very close to the epistemology of autoethnography. She was aware of bias in documentation and considered it part of the identity of this process that will sometimes be a means of opening to the past, and consequently sometimes it will open detours. And as a conclusion, documentation plays a central role within the pedagogical paradigm, be it teacher observing and documenting students' works or interactions between students and teachers, be it communication with families, experts, and stakeholders, or teachers' individual thought process. In other words, multiple layers of autoethnography. And Carla is someone who dedicated her life to re-experiencing ideas that were not new and have been formulated before her, connecting them together and making them into practical paths or action. This practice caused her to settle on the margin of academic debate and businesses, and instead of making her a well-known figure, it turned her into an activist. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid.
Hey, hello everyone. So I'm a psychotherapist in training and PhD student in psychology at the University of West London. And I wanted to read a text that that was published in Policies Voices, a medical educational platform that promotes humanity through the power of storytelling. And the text that I'm presenting, to have your feedback, whether you feel maybe it would be useful to transform it into a short film to educate medical students and nursing students, or whether it stands alone as a text. So it mentions, just to prepare you, it mentions trauma, missing people, grief, and searching for a missing person. Yes, I know, I'm depressed, I say, then pause. It's just that my mum went missing 7 years ago and she was never found. Since then, it's never been the same, I say. It's hard, it still is. I'm so sorry, says Dr. Camden. A tall, thin, middle-aged man, composed, exuding quiet sophistication. This is the first time I'm seeing him. Tell me more about it. What happened? Oh, she had Alzheimer, I said. My dad was doing his garden. When he went to check on her, she was gone. He thought he could find her. He never did, I say. Our whole village did try, the police, search dogs, helicopters, divers, mountain rangers. No one found her. She vanished. She was a good walker, you see. And there was a lot of flooding. I'm very sorry, Dr. Camden says. When my mother died of cancer, it was hard. But you have to move on and see that it is better for her that way. Surprised, I lift my head to look him in the eye. Oh no, not him. I don't understand. Up to this point, he seemed so understanding about my weight, my insomnia, until he spoke those last words, slowly resonating in my head. You have to move on. The familiar sense of disappointment, my heart sinking. Do I try to explain my experience to him, or I just let it go? What's the point? I have to. I tell myself, he's an educated man, a sensitive one. Surely he only needs a nudge. Well, you see, it's difficult to move on, I begin. I can't. People who have lost a loved one can't. Nor is that good to do so, because I don't know where she is. I don't know if someone kidnapped her. I don't know what happened to her. She could still be alive. It's not as easy as that. You can't move on, he echoes. No, because I don't have her body, which could tell me that she's dead for sure. I don't have a grave to visit. I can't move on. In fact, moving on would mean I've given up on her. Even if the chances that she survived are slim, nothing is sure. And what do the police say? They think she fell into a river and died. Well, I think it would help you to move on, he says firmly, almost exasperated. Back to square one. It isn't possible, I say again. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about my insomnia. Inwardly, I add, to keep from having to explain and justify my pain again and again, and to protect myself from being judged for feeling the way I feel. I haven't even mentioned how traumatic the search was. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have told him about how unreal it felt to see helicopters, search dogs hunting for my mom. The terrible pang of hearing you have 24 hours to find your mom alive. The panic when I realized how impossible a task it was, how shocking it was to see the police in our house, to see the whole village hall full of volunteers studying maps of the area, making detailed search plans, while my father, my brother, and I looked on, stunned, unable to think straight. How heartbreaking it felt to try to sleep, listening to the rain, thinking of my mum all alone outside because we couldn't search in the dark. How deeply disappointing it was that the press didn't report on her case until we've involved a journalist we knew, and how inconceivable it was to hear people lie about her whereabouts to get attention. How guilty we felt every day for not having saved her. All of those memories and many more felt like a heavy, stiffing coat that's impossible to remove. Or like the wetted, tightened skin of a burned victim. I glance at Dr. Camden, who sits quietly, a look of concern on his face. How can he understand, I think? He doesn't even know how it feels to wake up in the middle of the night with a dagger in your heart. So I try again. Maybe I just need to find the words that will resonate with him. Maybe I just need to be analytical. You know, it's hard when people don't understand that you can't move on, I say. It is, really. I know we all want black and white answers, and when someone goes missing, there's none. You're just confronted with the impossible, the unthinkable, uncertainty all the time. And families of the missing people don't respond the same way as people exposed to sudden trauma. That's why they need understanding. They're going through constant trauma, not grief, really understand. What I've just said sounds so cold, so clinical, so detached, as if stripped from the experience and its meaning. It's hard. Gazing at me sympathetically, he says, it must be awful to live with that uncertainty for so long. Yes, I say. At first, it's as if everything has lost its ground. Then you learn to live with the not knowing, with the constant anxiety and uncertainty. It becomes part of your life. You become someone else. What really hurts, though, is to feel so lonely because you can't open up to anyone. Nobody really understands what it is like, you see. He paused, looking me in the eye, then says, I'm wondering what would have helped you now? Just to talk, to be listened to, I say, to be understood, that's all. And for the first time, I feel heard. For the first time, I think he understands.
Thank you, Pascal. Very touching and moving and emotional reading. And Samuel, if you hear me, it was really fun to notice that we have the same hairstylist, the best in town. Oh. So, I'm Kari Silvola from Finland. This presentation is based on one article of my dissertation, where I analyzed one research from Stanford, made 2018. It was IT, machine learning, AI research, which examined can AI and DNN, the deep neural networks, can they predict sexual orientation, among many other things. And the idea in that research was that they analyzed the sexual orientation based on facial pictures, face pictures. So I was doing modeling, quite long career, but these are very historical photos. They are from early 1990s. So when I was, as a gay model, acting, presenting heterosexual, straight, the ideal masculinity, singular. In 1990s, we didn't have the understanding that there are many masculinities in plural. So I have created the idea of what it is, what that ideal masculinity is, and how should I act that. So I wanted to test the research, and I found a replicant research and a model, and we run through my face pictures from early 19 model pictures, where I, in junction of cultural gaze, the cultural expectations, and my inner self, and the clients, and the photographer, and the hairstylist, I don't care that, as you can see, and all other persons involved. So it was very rich position to make a research. So yes, please, next slide. So I named these because there was a renaissance of gaydar research after 2010, especially done by AI. So I named them little g and AI and little da and R. So you know what's going on. So the claim was that sexual orientation can be read from facial features. And I took a very critical stance on that idea. Next, please. In general, before gay and big AI, data was based on first stereotypical ideas like, oh yeah, you know, he keeps his finger like this, so the S is a little bit too much. Oh yeah, the way he walks. So they were very stereotypical how the mainstream predicted what's the sexual orientation of that person. In those days, everybody was really into it and really interested in people's sexuality, other people's. So it also was secret codes of sexual minorities, and sexual minorities used very subtle codes which were not known, and we were signaling and recognizing each other when we were hiding, when we were in the closet, when we were passing, acting straight. But it wasn't the truth. They were all interpretations. Next, please. So, gaydar is both tool of surveillance, like optical sense, and a secret code the mainstream doesn't and didn't understand. So it's not simple a phenomenon or concept. It's really multi-layered. So my critique: sexual orientation isn't visible on the surface because that Stanford, it's one of the top. It's not Ivy League because it's on the East Coast, but it's top-notch university. And they, for example, claimed, because their idea, their hypothesis was based on that homosexuality depends on the mother's hormonal functions during the pregnancy. So if the mother has carrying a boy and she has too much testosterone, if she has carrying a girl and she has too much testosterone in her blood, she's going to be lesbian. And if she has too little testosterone, she's going to be gay. And that is like PhD theory, prenatal hormone theory, and comes from the medicine. So it's that the sexual orientation is very essentialist from their perspective, biological, hormonal, whatnot. And they never read, for example, studies of gender studies. Never. They never refer to studies of gender studies. My claim is that, of course, that sexual orientation, or if I call myself gay or something else, it's culturally constructed. It's linguistically expressed. It's so deeply tied of language terms we use, which define our thinking, how we perceive ourselves and other people. And it's contextually negotiated identity, for example. Or I can refer like a sexual act by the word gay, or behavior, or it's the desire or the denial of the desire. So it can be very many things, and I think that the whole basis in that Stanford research and the other similar kind is that they didn't even bother to define what they mean word gay. They simply put the question gay or straight, and didn't define what do they mean, what gay means to them. There's, I think, one left. Algorithm doesn't understand. They simplify what is contradictory, underdefined, and deeply human. And this is the danger of AI. Because, okay, we have we call natural language models. I think human language models, but it doesn't understand. And because it's based on the 1 and 0, either or, it's good in questions which are black and white, but we people are black and white. We are not either or. We are much more complex, multi-layered, and yeah, whatever you want to be. Thank you.
Right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ajmer Singh Wahiwala, but people call me AJ. It's a lot easier to say. I'm a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh. Well, just in case you thought I was a celebrity walking in with these two beautiful bodyguards, I have to disillusion you here. Yeah, I'm not. I have these beautiful people next to me because actually I'm blind. I entered the blind world in 2012 when I left the world of optometry after a 12-year career. Yes, you heard right, optometry, the irony, eh? As I went down this path of blindness, I came to witness how my life and relationships changed in many different ways, in ways that sometimes I couldn't have predicted. Most significantly, my close relationships with people that I've known for years seemed to change. And for me, the changing was not for the better. Thus, I became very anxious in those relationships, feeling less important, less worthy, and that I'm not the same. I came to feel like I was retreating from any close, intimate relational connections. In fact, I was struggling to connect genuinely. It's when I began my training as a psychotherapist that I began to make some sense of what was going on for me. Initially, the training echoed this internal struggle, my overwhelming shame, my desperate desire to have external validation, and my intense fear that I may never be able to relate truly again without sight. But slowly, I began to understand, and it begged the question, why does the absence of vision deeply touch upon our capacity to relate? After qualifying, the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world and our profession with a storm. My colleagues had to move their practice and therapeutic work onto online platforms, which is where sight is limited, and then over the telephone, where sight is completely absent. Thus, my experiences of becoming blind and now being blind joined forces, the experiences of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it left me with a question. Whilst living in a sighted world, working more generally with a sighted population, how can we truly reach the relational depths needed for deep therapeutic work when sight and visual communication is limited or absent? And thus my PhD was born. I have titled my PhD, Seeing Beyond Vision, a critical realist autoethnography on understanding relationality in blindness in psychotherapy. And so now, I invite you, if you feel comfortable to do so, to gently close your eyes, let go of the visual, and let yourself listen, and step with me into my blind world. Vignette, Pinjere ki Panchi, the caged bird.
Ad would like to take you back to September 1992. The lights seem dim, almost reverently softening the edges of the world around me. All my senses are pulled inward towards one focal point, my cousin Max. He settles in his favourite place in front of the hearth, a position that seems to always welcome him, as if it too recognises his quiet presence. The low brim of his baseball cap casts a delicate shadow over his smile, but it does not hide its warmth. There is something luminous about him in the moment as his smile fills the room, not with brightness, but with a kind of belonging.
"33 years on, the words of the song still enter me as they did then, like light entering through closed eyelids. I could not translate them then, but they seemed to have translated me, reaching past my language, past my cognition, and into a place of pure knowing. I felt the song had sung to me then, speaking to my feelings and my very being, as though it knew that one day I would need it to sing to my blindness and my blind world."
So Max places his hands upon the dolac, cradled beneath his knees, and then he begins.
पिंजरे के पंछी तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, बाहर से तो खामोश है, भीतर भीतर रोए रे, भीतर भीतर रोए, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, पिंजरे के पंछी रे कह न सके तू अपनी कहानी, तेरी भी पंछी क्या जिंदगानी रे, जिद न तेरी खता लिखी, आंसू में कलम डबो, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, पिंजरे के पंछी रे रे। Thank you.
Oh, wow. That was so amazing, that panel. All of you, thank you. I'm very emotional, Edge. I'm struggling to speak. I'm going to pull myself together. Pascal, you said at some point, how can I find the words to communicate to this doctor? What more words can I find? You found, in my opinion, you found them in what you've shared today. But
Not the real sensation.
no,
Understanding.
the story does its work for me, and it's put me into Adj's piece that sometimes we can't find the words and sometimes we don't need to. I didn't understand the meaning of the words in your song, Adj, but it was full of meaning for me, the music. And that was so wonderful in academia, where we might break free of numbers, but then we're trapped with words so often, the written form and the written word in English language often. So that expression, what you communicated through that music was just has moved me deeply. I usually get to the afternoon before I have tears at this conference, but I haven't even made it to lunchtime. So thank you all. Pretty powerful.
Yes, Kari, you said you got critical remarks on your research. And is that the situation until now?
And no, my stance to that
Yeah.
Stanford's research was
Yes, but the other scientific world reacts on your research with welcome and support. Oh, God. Then I didn't get that point. Thank you for clarifying that.
So Edwina, my name's Vanessa, and I'm a psychotherapist. So it's my first time at the conference, and I wanted to share two things really. One is an observation and one's a question. Pascal, I think your piece of work is incredibly important. And I wrote down something that you said. They're going through constant trauma, not grief. And I think that's a really important message for psychotherapists to understand the nature of the experience for relatives of the missing. It's not grief, it's constant trauma. I thought that landed really poignantly for therapists. So thank you for that. AJ, is it AJ or is it Aj? Okay. Thank you for your beautiful song. It was really moving. I'm kind of echoing David's. I'm struggling to speak. I'm finding my words. I think I'm curious as somebody going into a master's dissertation, choosing autoethnography and thinking about arts-based methodologies. I think that's the right phrase for it, but expression, how to express beyond words, and maybe beyond visual as well. How, on a practical level, how are you incorporating your different types of expression into your PhD work?
Well, it's an ongoing process. Music is probably very. I only learned to play guitar as a light person. I learned on YouTube, and it's been a revelation in terms of learning to say what I felt. So poetry, music is where I'm really set, and I'm just trying to express best I can using different languages. So Indian, Punjabi languages, they're quite expressive, and there are different ways to touch on. So maybe take a breath and languages to really emphasize.
Thank you.
Dr. Kari, thank you so much for your work, given the times that technology is now trying to, I suppose, capture or enclose us as queer people. And your work is trying to destroy or transgress that kind of preconception of stereotypes of gay people and queer people in general. My question, though, is do you have any plans of really pushing it towards the critical and expanding your work and questioning institutions and technological structures that oppress queer people at this age?
Not so far. Not so far, but thank you. That's a really important point of view and very, very important at this given time, unfortunately. And I also think that the danger of AI is that it narrows our mind and thinking, so how we perceive world, other people, other phenomenon, anything in this world, because it's so, the approach is so narrow. So little by little, it starts to change our thinking, and now, of course, ChatGPT and all that, we say that, yeah, we stop thinking now because we let it that think for us. And I find that extremely dangerous.
Thank you all so much for that. I'm Jonathan, and I wanted just to speak to what you presented, offered to us, AJ, which was a real privilege to witness, and to ask you to think with. So my question is about how you are feeling, thinking, connecting between music and psychotherapy, whether because there's something, and I feel like there's something already there from what you said and how you presented it. I wonder whether you might speak into that just a little bit, please.
Music, as you speak, that speaks to a part that is beyond us, that is bigger than us, that is more than us. And the more I'm getting into it, the more I'm understanding and finding that it really helps trying to step people away from simple thinking or get lost in their thoughts, to step outside and begin to look at a bigger picture. And with music, you can really touch into feelings that are often obscured or unattainable in terms of description and words. So to answer your question, I don't know if I have, but I find music as a powerful tool in psychotherapy. And I'll often use music or poetry with clients that I'm seeing.
I could make a comment if that's okay.
It's great, thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you all for the presentations. And I see so many strands, and this is the thing about not being AI. There are so many other strands between us. I'm a trans non-binary researcher, and thinking about some of the things that you said, for example, Pascal, about experiences that other people don't understand, and how do we communicate that? And the same for you, AJ, trying to illustrate experiences that people don't necessarily understand and make links. And then when situations and environments change, suddenly we have this empowered experience that suddenly becomes valued by society and recognized by society. And I think for me, as auto ethnographers, standing proud and talking about those experiences, it's extremely challenging emotionally, psychologically, cognitively, physically even, but it is so valuable. So thank you very, very much for your presentations.
Thank you, Sasha. I've got Bethan.
Good morning, everybody. Sad not to be in Bristol, but nice to be in the community. I would just like to encourage people to go and watch and listen to Hamed's online Google Drive documents. I've not had much time to dip into it, but there's a link in our chat. And it's just really a reflection. I know a little bit of Reggio Emilio's work, but not much. But one quote stood out for me, which was, childhood is not an age, it's a way of thinking. And I think that's a really lovely place to start a conference with. There's lots to learn, and learning with the mind of a child in a new way constantly. And that reminded me of the breath. As we take in a new breath and exhale, each moment is new. And it linked with that idea of the child learning. Also, there was a learning by doing and a pedagogy of listening. So thank you, Ahmed. I enjoyed that. And all the sessions were really very moving, as the other comments have have expressed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethan. Any further comments from online? Okay. I'd like to say again, thank you to everybody that was presenting. Absolutely amazing.